Welcome to Born on the Bayou Sports, a Houston sports show made for Houstonians by Houstonians. Join Tim Costello and Scott Barzilla every week as they break down the latest in Houston Astros, Rockets, and Texans news. Tim's a former minor league broadcaster, and Scott has written 2 books on the Baseball Hall of Fame. Yeah, if Javier could get it figured out, it would make things a lot easier because he was that guy everybody was counting on this year to be a Cy Young candidate, take that big step forward and help anchor this rotation with Fromber.
Since he's come to Houston, you can look at the development of guys like Carlos Correa defensively, Jeremy Pena defensively. I mean, you can Alex Bregman's, certainly I think a better than average third baseman.
And now you're putting teams in 3rd and 8, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. Now here comes Will Anderson. Pin back your ears, let's go. So if you're Bayou born and bred, or just like spending time in the H, sit down, relax, and stay Houston strong. Welcome all my friends to the show that returns again. A little bit late, but hey, we're here. Family stuff, life stuff. Scott thought he had a play, didn't have a play, but hey, we're back. We're live.
Well, we did have a play, Tim, but have you been seeing all the stuff about the sun in the news?
The sun?
Yes.
No, I have not.
There's actually parts of the United States where you can see an aurora.
Okay.
Well, see, the problem is that means that there's a proton particle event. And so Janet has spent 3 nights this week from about 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. going back into emission control and monitoring the sun, which, we had tickets last night and we decided that, if she has to be recalled, it's probably not a good idea for her to be at a play.
Fair enough. We just saw a real fun play. We had our theater night last week. It was what's nice, I guess, sometimes, Scott, about doing community theater, because, I was interested about this not long ago. I approached one of the directors. What happens if Tim Costello, write a new play? How do I get it to Broadway? Like, what is the path in 2024 to get a play to Broadway? Because if you look what's out there, most of it is shows that have been written years ago, or an adaptation of a movie, or some sort of celebrity doing something on Broadway, right? Like that kind of typically sums up Broadway. How do we get new shows there? And so I actually had the opportunity to see a new show, and it was kind of a joke on the teenage slasher, and it was called Lend Me a Chainsaw. And what was funny about it is the person who was the killer never actually got to kill anybody. It's like everybody killed themselves in an attempt to run away from the killer. They kept all accidentally killing themselves, trying to get away from the killer. So it was just this really ironic, funny, satirical look at that kind of genre, for the Halloween season.
Yeah, and the Alley Theater does new plays every now and then, maybe one a season. They might, debut something. And for those of y'all watching on YouTube, you'll notice that my hairstyle is kind of a bit disheveled this evening, which kind of, I think, is a nice visual representation of what my week has been like.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a crazy week, and not just for us, right? Obviously anyone who has friends and family in Florida, we've been thinking about them as well. And I don't know about you, Scott, when these things hit, I still feel like as a former Houstonian, I have a little bit of PTSD from Harvey specifically. And my aunt posted a picture of her, at a restaurant having nachos and a glass of wine, celebrating that they're okay. And it made me wonder, what was like the first place you guys went out to when everything opens back up, you're good to go? Like, what was the way for you to be like, hey, we're returning to normalcy, we're going to blank?
Well, I don't even know normalcy, but I remember after Ike, not Harvey, we went to Target and there were like 3 cartons of milk left. And so my wife made eye contact with another woman who had a larger family, and so they decided to divvy it up. And the other woman took 2 cartons, Janet took 1, and that was it on the milk.
Yeah, I definitely remember a trip to HEB where they're letting so many people in at a time, and then a meal at Buca de Beppo too. Because I actually was working at the original Carrabba's at the time, and I was on the other side of that, right? Like I was welcoming people into the environment of getting back out into the world after being in your home for. I think I was inside for 7 straight days after Harvey, just kind of trapped there with the water. But for those people able to get back out, for them it was a chance to just have a bowl of pasta and feel a little bit normal, even though there's no power at home.
Yeah, one of the guys I graduated with actually, yeah, his stepson was in choir with Ann, and so we see each other at concerts all the time, and he was the manager at Specs before he took on a new job, and so he's sending out calls on social media after Harvey. Hey, we got bottled water over here at Specs. Come by and get it. So that was actually a pretty welcomed announcement on social media there.
Yeah, it's anytime you can get water, man, it's insane when you think about that stuff, right? And it's good that they put it out there, and again, hey, it just makes me think about those times, right? When we had been through that in Houston, which too many times, right?
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of maybe something a little bit better or a little bit more exciting, Texans played a football game this week, Scott, and maybe it wasn't pretty, maybe it wasn't the best look, maybe we lost one of our best players in the process, but hey, we got the W.
We did, and they always teach us in school that we always want to, have a sandwich where you start off with a positive, kind of insert a negative, and end with a positive. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
Compliment sandwich.
Yeah, the compliment sandwich. So I'm going to start it off with a compliment. And one of the things that I think we've seen over this course of the season is week 1, Anthony Richardson played a horrible football game. And everybody thought, yes, Anthony Richardson, he sucks. Week 2, Caleb Williams plays a pretty bad football game. Everybody says, he's a rookie. It's Caleb Williams, right? Then Sam Darnold, kicks the shit out of us. Then, Trevor Lawrence comes back, plays a pretty bad game, especially when I'm listening. Yeah, this is Trevor Lawrence. He shouldn't, I think that was the worst game Josh Allen's ever played in his career by far. And so when that happens 4 times out of 5 weeks, that a quarterback has a bad game, that's not just the quarterback showing up and going, oh shit, I had a bad day. That's your defense doing something to make quarterbacks have a bad day.
Is this defense perfect? No, it's not. I think they're susceptible to some deep balls over the top every now and then. And that's shown. Even though Richardson had a bad week, he burned us a few times deep. Even though Caleb Williams had a bad week, he burned us a few times deep. Josh Allen, got us deep once or twice, I think. And so did Lawrence. But at the end of the day, the completion percentages are so low. The pressure that these guys are putting on the quarterback it's hot. It's almost every play. The effort on defense is fantastic. And are they getting the ton of sacks? No. But at the end of the day, when I look at a guy who goes 9 of 30, who's an all-pro, who's someone that everybody lists in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the NFL, you cannot talk about top 5 guys in the league without someone mentioning Josh Allen. We held that guy to less than a 33% completion, less than 30% completion, right? And no, did we get home? No, we didn't get home a bunch. But hey, those numbers alone show me that the pass rush is doing what it needs to be doing, Scott.
Yeah, and I can think of 2 teams in history that I think had dominant defenses. One of them I was definitely around for, and I don't think you would have. You were technically around, maybe. The 85 Bears. I mean, you technically might have been alive.
I was not.
No, but you were
I
not
was a
alive.
glint in my papa's eye at that point.
Yeah, you were not alive for that. That was a great defense. Now, I'm sure surely you were there for the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those defenses are rare. And so every other defense in the NFL, even like defenses like when D'Amico Ryans was captaining the number one overall defense in San Francisco, have holes. Every defense has holes. And so the key question is, can you make plays whenever whenever your team needs you to make plays? And I think 2 weeks in a row, this team made key stops towards the end of the game when there's other portions of the game where, things didn't look so good. In the third quarter and early fourth quarter, the Bills were starting to move the ball, and I was thinking, oh shit, this thing is gone. This thing is going to end up badly for us. Jacksonville actually pulls ahead, 2 weeks ago, but this team made key stops towards the end of the game when it needed to.
Yeah, I mean, so far in the season, a team that we expected to have an explosive offense and put a ton of points on the board and all this other stuff, they've relied on the defense. The defense is the reason why this team is 4-1. Now, CJ Stroud has made some good decisions with the football. He doesn't turn it over a whole lot. At the end of the day, your defense has held every single team you've played in check except the Vikings and given your offense a chance at the end of the game to go out and get you a win. You shouldn't be in this position, right? Like you and I would both agree that that Bills game should have been over midway through the third quarter, realistically, based on how things were going. And for some reason, it just seems like the team takes the foot off the gas in the second half. But it just seemed to me, as watching the game, like the Texans were thoroughly in control of that game. And then next thing you know, you look up and it's tied.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be a conversation to be had, especially as we keep going, because I think, if I read my numbers correctly, we are 7th in the NFL in yards, 1st in passing yards, but we are, I want to say, 18th or 19th in points. That's a gap that needs to close. Now, part of that is DeMeco Ryans. DeMeco Ryans is a defensive coach. When he's ahead, he is he's gonna start turtling. That's gonna be his instinct. So, I mean, he's not a greatest show on turf, Rams, Kurt Warner, we're just going to light up the scoreboard kind of coach. It's not, a Mike Martz or a Dick Vermeil. He's not that kind of coach. But this team needs to find ways to score touchdowns instead of, relying on field goals. And that's going to be the next step, critical next step.
No, I agree with you. And part of having a good defense and being a defensive coach is knowing that you can punt it away in the third quarter. You can not risk a turnover. You can do some different things that maybe you wouldn't have done if you were trailing, right? But at the end of the day, the intensity that he asks from that defense, right? Where we want to swarm. We want everybody on the ball. We want to go, go, go. I want the same thing from the offense, right? Like I don't feel like we've opened up the playbook in the second half, or really at this point in the season, but especially the second half, it's just such a bland version of the offense. And then you look to CJ late and say, "Fuck, hey man, hey, we let this one get close. Can you go win me a ball game, please?"
Yeah, and so I'm going to ask you, since we're on the meat portion of the compliment sandwich, what was the biggest head scratcher to you? Now, I'm going to give you 2 plays that I think were head scratchers to me. Number 1 is let's run Dario Ugabawale up the gut on 4th and 1 in the second quarter. Now, you could have done many different things there. To me, the decision to go for it, to me, is defensible in that moment.
I wanted to go.
But, you also could have defended, hey, let's take the points and, keep building our lead. I get it. But the other play to me was late in the fourth quarter, passing the ball when you're on the 39-yard line, when you could have just run it with 40 seconds left, maybe gain 2 yards, send, Fairburn out there with 3 seconds left, kick a field goal, win the game. Which one's more puzzling?
I think the second one, and I'll discuss more later why. I mean, that could have cost us the game at the end of the day, right? Like you had to punt the ball back to Josh Allen with a fair amount of time and timeouts left. Like if he isn't, and probably, let's be honest, we probably concussed Josh Allen in that game, and they allowed him to get back out on the field. So at minimum, he's not concussed. He's playing hurt. What's realistically what happened is he talked his way out of concussion protocol of that blue tent. And we got lucky that we got away with it. But I feel like he hit a longer field goal for the win than he would have had if we would have just run the ball and got out of there. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. They did not have any timeouts. I'm wrong about that. But other than that, that was undefensible. But so let's go back to the first one because I want to talk more about that second one later in the show.
Yeah, that's fine.
But let's go back to that going forward on fourth down because I think that was the right call. That was a momentum shifting opportunity realistically when you look at where you are in that game. However, the play call was terrible, right? You lined up looking like you were going to do like a Philadelphia push from behind quarterback sneak, and then you give it to your small back, and it just, I don't know. Like I would have rather, if you're going to do that, put it in CJ's hands. Like at this point, put it in CJ's hands and let him either read it or take off.
That is your fourth string tailback, Tim. I mean, I don't. Well, and so
slash
kicker,
backup kicker.
Yeah,
second string kicker.
Hey, a minor hat tip to Dare for playing some good football these last 2 weeks when pressed into duty, especially as a receiver out of the backfield. Hey, hat tip to you, bud. But here's the thing, and this is why I'm almost going to pick this play, because this game shouldn't have been 20-20. If you have just an RPO or any kind of a play where you get a first down there, you go in for a touchdown, you're up 21-3, Buffalo is likely not coming back from that. I mean, that game, I don't know, say the football game is over at that point.
Well, I mean, they had 20 points in the tank that day, right?
Yeah.
Like if you go up 21-3, that's 21-20.
Yeah, well, exactly. But, you forget you score a field goal coming back in the first possession in the second half. So then you're looking at 24-3. And, and however many, obviously you had CJ throw a key pick whenever you're in their territory where you probably could have come away with points there as well. So
yeah, that one hurt.
You've left some points on the board. And that's kind of what I'm driving at, is that even though you're not, teams don't score 40 plus points routinely in the NFL. This isn't college football. This isn't the Big 12 where that happens. So I don't expect the Texans to score 40 plus points a game, but I expect in those moments that you convert and you add, like if you add 7 to 10 points in this game, I mean, think about, what that does to the complexion of the game.
Oh, absolutely. Because as much as I love the fact that at this point, I don't think there's been a moment yet where you've asked CJ to go win you a game in the fourth and he hasn't done it, right? Like I feel like in his NFL career, at least in the regular season, every time you said, hey, I need you to go put a drive together to win this game, he's done it. It's not always going to happen that way, right? Like we have to be realistic. And we've got a portion of our schedule coming up where we should blow the doors off some teams realistically, right? Like we've seen who teams are for the most part. We know who you are. And we should be putting up some points, and we should be winning by double-digit points frequently in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah. So to finish off the compliment sandwich with another compliment, I'm not giving him a hat tip this week, but I am giving him a mention. Did you hear the story about Aziz Shahir prior to the game?
I did not. No, he had a great game, though. Dropped a pick, but had a good game.
Well, he spent Saturday in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
He lost 10 pounds prior to that game. But, with, I think, some kind of a stomach bug.
And then played every snap, right?
Played every snap and played damn well. He missed one tackle in the first half. That was pretty, blatant. But other than that, played an absolutely great football game. And you know what they say, Tim? There's reasons why guys are on defense. And he
right.
showed you. Yeah, he showed you why he's on defense. Those hands, that was the wrong place to hit him on those throws.
But hey, it's okay. The defense played well.
But he followed Kincaid on that first one, And if he wouldn't have been hip to hip with Kincaid, there was nobody else on that play. Kincaid was going to score if he got any kind of separation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mentioned, the upcoming schedule and the chance to rack some wins together. The Texans take on the New England Patriots this week, Scott, and it's been announced Drake May is going to get his first ever NFL start. Kind of a precarious situation. We've mentioned the list of quarterbacks who have had bad days against the Houston Texans. I got to think that's a tough spot to be in as a rookie. Like, obviously, the Patriots drafted you with high expectations. Jacoby Brissett has not been, anything. You're looking for some spark because that's another elite defense over there in New England. Their defense is pissed because they're losing games 10-9 right now. You gotta, what do you expect?
Well, two things on this story, and because I covered this, it'll be coming out. It came out this afternoon, actually, when I posted. Number one, their best defender is out. He'll spend a little bit of time in the pokey, Jabril Peppers. So he is on the NFL exempt list, which is basically a paid vacation for those of y'all that are not aware. But number two, I don't get this decision by New England. You had the Dolphins last week. You got the Jaguars next week, and you choose this game to roll out your rookie? I don't know, Tim.
I would have to think maybe it's just because he's a little bit more mobile than Jacoby Brissett is. And with the way this pass rush has been playing, if you can't manipulate the pocket, you might be a dead man. He would have been in that game sooner or later. Might as well start him.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in the general premise that he gives them a better chance to win than Brissett does, because Brissett's just not a good quarterback. And there's nobody on this earth that will convince me otherwise. But if you're looking at him as a long-term answer at the position, to me, I think the decision to sit him for the very first portion of the season was actually a good one. And I think I would have strategically picked a game where he would likely have success. And that, to me, that would point to next week.
I tend to agree with you. But however, here we are, right? And now the Texans get to face a rookie quarterback where realistically they don't have a lot of tape on him. You can look at, his preseason stuff. You can look at the college stuff, but it's going to be maybe a little bit harder for D'Amico to put together the game plan. I think obviously pressure is going to be first and foremost, right? A young guy, you want to try and get to him early and often and just hit him hard and rattle him, right?
I think, well, given what we just went through, I think he has the perfect blueprint. It's the one you just used against Josh Allen, because Josh Allen is a similar quarterback to Drake May. You look at what Drake May, what he brings to the table. You're talking about athleticism. You're talking about a strong arm. Is he accurate? We don't really know. Josh Allen is not particularly accurate. He's strong armed. He's a freakish athlete. So to me, the key is that you didn't get to Josh Allen but once. But the key is that you kept guys in their lanes and you kept him from running wild on you. I think he had about 50 yards rushing, but maybe he only got loose about 2 or 3 times, which for a Josh Allen game is actually pretty good. And so to me, I just roll out the same game plan. I disguise some coverages, and make sure that he doesn't know what's coming. But to me, as long as you keep Hunter and Anderson in their lanes, and you keep those running lanes closed up, saying, hey, you pick us apart. You have to be accurate. You're going to have little time. You're going to have to be accurate. Prove it to us. I don't think you can.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think what about on the other side of the ball? Because realistically, or not on the other side of the ball, right? But what about stopping the run? Because I think if the Texans can get a 10-point lead and shut the run down and force Drake May to throw, that's the ideal world.
Yeah, and their backs have had some fumbling issues. And that's one thing this Texans defense has not done is they have not forced a turnover since the Bears game. So, I mean, that's 3 football games. That's a long time to go without getting a turnover. And some of it's bad luck, like, Shire dropping a couple of interceptions. But to me, this is a prime game where you're going to be able to maybe get a strip sack on him. You're going to get him to force a bad throw into the secondary. We know Lassiter and Stingley are capable of picking guys. We know that Bullock is capable of picking guys. So I'm anticipating a couple of turnovers here on the part of the defense.
I am 1000% in agreement with you. I think this is a prime opportunity for the defense. I think as good as the Patriots defense is, I think may put them in some bad situations. I think, as you said, there's prime opportunity for a strip sack or a bad pass or backs fumbling, and hopefully the Texans take advantage. Now on the other side of things, you get Joe Mixon back this week, right? That is at least what it's looking like right now, based on the fact that he's been at practice. They signed back from the Bears practicing squad Texans legend Quinterio. He's back, baby.
Unspellable, baby. He's back.
Scott's favorite tight end is back on the roster, and I think it should be a good offensive week. Actually, I really do think, even though this Patriots off defense has been good, there's some things going on in that locker room. I don't know if changing the quarterback is going to be enough. And I think they maybe get put in some bad spots early, and the Texans have an opportunity to maybe get ahead 14-0 in the second quarter.
Yeah, a couple of things I think on this game. I think number one, obviously we're going to miss Nico Collins, and he's been put on IRs out for at least 4 games. But to me, this screams Tank Dell game.
Yep.
This screams it, and I think it's time to. You had a week, like last week. I get it. It's hard to you release a package of plays, when you're going through practice and you think you're going to have certain personnel, and then all of a sudden you lose a guy, and it's hard to adjust on the fly. But you've had 6 days. I think you're going to see some plays that are going to feature Tank Dell. And I think number 2, Joe Mixon is going to at least keep him honest in terms of, having a rushing attack. I don't think this Texans team is ever going to be a Walter Payton, Emmitt Smith-esque, even Arian Foster-esque running attack. But I think Mixon's going to be good enough where they can't key in on Stroud.
Let me ask you for a bold prediction for this week, Scott.
I'm going Tank Dell lands in the end zone at least once.
I'm going to take Joe Mixon 125 yards rushing.
Oh.
I think if you listen to the interviews, man, he's pissed. He feels, it was an illegal tackle. He was robbed. And I think he's going to be returning with a bit of a chip on his shoulder and, kind of a vengeance, looking to run his way into the playoffs theoretically. So I think Joe Mixon comes back strong.
And a mini hat tip. So now, if you look at Stephon Diggs' numbers, he is on pace to have over 100 catches and over 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns. Would you take that?
Pretty good.
Would you take that?
I would take that.
Yeah, I mean that's good numbers, and I think Nico Collins, assuming he only misses the 4 or 5 games, he can easily eclipse 1,000 yards. I mean, he's already at 500 plus. So I mean, I think you're looking at possibly 2 receivers over 1,000 yards, and that assumes that Tank Dell doesn't get going, which I think we both agree that he will at some point.
Yeah, I think he will. I've seen some numbers about his separation that are a little scary, coming back off the 2 injuries to the legs. But we'll see. We shall see. Let's take a look ahead to our Houston Astros as they get set for free agency here, Scott, coming up towards the end of our opportunity to be able to deal exclusively with Alex Bregman as well as Kikuchi. And unfortunately, I guess you could say both are represented by Scott Boras.
Yeah. So I'm going to go, I'm going to give you 2 options, which I have a lot more, at my disposal. But you can sign Bregman for $30 million a year and maybe afford Kikuchi. Maybe. But I don't think you can if you bring back Bregman. Or what would you say if I could give you a trade for Nolan Arenado with the Cardinals biting off $10 million of it per year and signing either Paul Goldschmidt to a one-year deal or Carlos Santana to a one-year deal, great guitarist Carlos Santana, and getting Kikuchi back? Which of those scenarios would you go for?
I think it's crazy, but I want Bregman back.
Okay, that's fair. I did an article is going to land tomorrow morning on Crawfish Boxes where I outline it. I want to say a couple of things. Paul Goldschmidt's if you look at his last 3 seasons and what's happened to him the last 3 seasons, that scares me. So there is no way I'm giving him more than 1 year, and I'm not even giving him $10 million. He's got to come for less than that. Carlos Santana played for $5 million for the Twins. He actually put up some decent numbers. And another thing about Santana that kind of goes unnoticed is that he is usually between +5 and +10 fielding runs every year. So he's actually put up better defensive numbers than Gurriel used to when he was, in his prime. So, Arenado, the only thing about Arenado is he signed for 3 more years. I think that last year is only for $15 million, but that last year is destined to be a possible Jose Abreu kind of season where you might have to write that off. But if the Cardinals are willing to eat off a chunk of it, it's not the worst idea in the world.
It's not. And if that's the route you have to go down, okay, we can explore that. I'm more on the side of this is an era, right? This is a group that at the end of the day, you've only found a way to keep one of the guys. When we think about golden eras or golden age of Houston Astros baseball, the first original one, you had Craig Biggio and Jeff Bagwell, who played their entire careers with the Houston Astros. And there's fucking statues of those guys outside of the ballpark. Now here we are in an even better era where you've let everybody but Jose Altuve walk. At some point, there has to be the conversation in the locker room the way Biggio and Bagwell had a conversation and said, this is where we want to be. So I think realistically, right, we loved the Jose Altuve contract. It's 7 years, $163.5 million, comes out to 23 and change million a year. That's what Alex Bregman needs to accept. If we can get Alex Bregman to accept a Jose Altuve type deal, and if we can get Jose Altuve to, kind of get him to understand that, then yeah, I want Alex Bregman back. And I'm even maybe to go a little bit higher at $25 million a year for those 7 years, but it needs to be in that range.
I don't know if I'm giving him 7 years.
That's what you've got to do, Scott.
I don't know, because I might go 5/125 or 5/130.
I'd give him the exact same deal you gave Altuve. Say, look, I value you. I think that's how you have to phrase it. You have to say, I value you the same way I value Jose Altuve in terms of what you guys have meant to this franchise. Jose says he wants you back. The city of Houston wants you back. Look, we're going to give you the same deal that we gave Jose Altuve because we value you.
What now? What's the total on Altuve's again?
163.5.
So what I would do, Tim, is I would go almost like 4/120 for the first 4 years, and then taper it off for those last 3.
I mean, you can build it out however you want. You can put options in there if you want. I mean, it's up to those people
I don't know.
doing it.
I don't think he's going to be good beyond 5 years, personally.
Then throw a player option for the last 2 and let him have the choice.
Yeah, I'm the amount of money doesn't bother me. 163 doesn't bother me. So as long as you structure it, I think, where those last few years you don't feel bad about paying a replacement level player, the amount of money that he'd be making. But, there's other options out there. I mean, if you want to go heavy first base, How would you like Christian Walker?
No, I'd love Christian Walker. And again, if we miss on Alex Bregman, then you have to pivot, right? Like then it's time to look and make different moves. But I think if you can get Bregman back, that's the best option. And I think you have to hope maybe a combination of DeZenzo and Singleton can get it done next year.
And this is what I said in the article, and this is what's always pissed me off, even going back to the Drayton McClain days. Drayton and Drayton McClain treated Roger Clemens like he was off books. Like, I'll pay you, and I'm just not going to include that as part of the salary. And, we saw that, we've seen that with, we've offered Correa, a contract. Wasn't much, but we offered him one. We've offered some of these guys, we offered Cole money. It wasn't nearly enough, but we offered it to them. To me, if you're willing to offer X dollars to Alex Bregman, then you should be willing to offer X dollars to other players, the exact same money. Because I think at the end of the day, and where you've gotten the city of Houston, is we don't watch players anymore. We watch the team, because the team has been great for 8 of the last 9 years, been to the playoffs, 7 times to the league championship series in a row, 4 times to the World Series, 2 times winning it. That's a great run. And you have a sack of goodwill. And so if you decide, if Alex Bregman comes in and says, you know what, I want 7 years, $280 million, then I have no problem with Crane and Brown saying, fuck off, thanks for the memories. But if you have a stack of money there that you were willing to give to him, you need to be willing to give that to somebody else or a group of other players.
No, I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. If you can't keep this player, then you need to find a way to replace that production, right? Like even when you look back at Moneyball, it was like, hey, we can't afford to go sign a player that does this much, right? That provides this level of WAR. But I can find 4 guys that add up to that one player and we'll play them strategically or whatever it is, right? And as we mentioned in our last episode, there are holes on this team. This team is not perfect. And at the end of the day, Mauricio Dubon played the last month of the season hurt. He's going to be having surgery. Chaz McCormick had his worst season as a professional. Is that a one-off, or is he trending downward? Did people figure him out? Jeremy Pena had defensive woes out the ass. He was not the hitter that he was his rookie year. He was better, but he still wasn't great, right? Kyle Tucker's contract's coming up, right? Like there's just so much. And then, hey, do you extend Fromber? I tend now, like, I think it's time to just go ahead and extend Fromber. If we're going to continue to, if you're going to tell me, hey, we can't afford Bregman, then it's extend Fromber and extend Kyle Tucker immediately. Yeah, I don't want to ever see Fromber pitch in anyone but a Houston Astros jersey.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. And the whole thing is, and so Crane knows what his budget is. And so if it's $250 million, okay, so be it. You've got a certain number of players on the books. You've got arbitration that you're expecting. So you know what the gap is. You've got X amount of dollars. Now, one thing I would like to see prioritized, because you mentioned Pena's defense, I think you miss Yuli's ability to pick throws out of the dirt. And so I'd like to see them go out. I mean, Goldschmidt's basically neutral defensively. So, I mean, I don't think that's much of a bonus. Singleton's bad. He's just a bad defensive first baseman. Santana's good. If you could get Santana for $5 or $6 million, that shouldn't preclude you from bringing in Bregman.
Let me ask you something. Yuli's actually having a pretty good postseason, Scott. Should he decide, I want to play one more year, would you bring him back on the cheap? A league minimum deal for Yuli Gurriel?
Oh, for league minimum? I might.
As you said, his defense would make everybody on the infield better. You can platoon him with Singleton if his offense isn't what you're looking for. But at the end of the day, he can't be worse than Abreu was.
Well,
and he's going to be cheap.
For league minimum, you could sit there and say he's our guy against lefties. I mean, that's, and because we know Singleton sucks against lefties. So you could make that work. And I think, Singleton's basically going to be on a veteran minimum deal, I think.
I think actually
Um,
he's still on the deal he signed. Like he signed a
is
ten
he?
year he signed a 10-year, $10 million deal when he was with the Astros in the minor league. So I believe it goes back to that when he gets back into the
That's
system.
still $1 million a year. That's not,
No, it's not expensive, but I do believe that is the deal that he's on.
so I could go with that. But the whole thing is if you save there, you need to splurge somewhere else. And if splurging means let's bring back Fromber and Tucker, I'm okay with that. If splurging means let's go out and get like maybe a kick-ass left fielder or center fielder, I'd be okay with that. I mean, there's a lot of different options that you have, and I think the key is that Crane needs to sit there and tell Dana Brown, this is how many Benjamins you have to spend. You go out and spend it the best way you know how.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And I trust in Dana. I think he'll get it done. I mean, I think this team at the end of the day was better than they showed in the playoffs. I'm with you. I don't love the new format. We won a division, and the next thing you know, we're knocked out in 2 games. But at the end of the day, I can't complain. The format is the format. You weren't one of the top 2 teams. We were where we were. Um, it sucks that that's the way it ended, but I do think you don't have to do a ton, but there's room to work with. This team wasn't perfect. And if you've got money to spend, as they should, let's go spend it and let's get better.
Absolutely.
Well, Scott, speaking of getting better, the Houston Rockets are going into the season looking to be better than they were last year. They showed signs of improvement. We saw, Sengun show us that he is a guy you can run the offense through. Jalen Green took some pretty big steps forward at times last season. I thought Jabari Smith played some great basketball at points last season. And now the preseason has kicked off. And I'd say, a little bit of excitement going into the season and looking forward to watching some more Rockets basketball. And hey, maybe a team that this could be the year, Scott, where they make a run at that 6th, 7th, they seed that play-in round.
Yeah, and there are two big questions to me coming into this season. I think they're interesting. Number one, what are the realistic expectations for Reed Shepard? I mean, that's I think a question. We were talking off air. There's some people on social media comparing him to Adam Morrison here on October 10th, when we have like what 3 weeks until the season starts, which is beyond ridiculous to me. But I think it is a reasonable question to say, hey, what do we expect of this kid? And I think number two, out of your returning players, who do you most expect to show a big improvement this year?
Those are 2 good questions. I think my personal expectation for Reed Shepard is 15 minutes a game, spot up shooter more than anything. Because I think realistically, when this team is healthy, you're going to have a combination of Fred VanVleet and Amen Thompson handling most of the ball handling. And with that, you've got 2 guys who can get into the lane, and you've got Jalen Green who can get into the lane. And I think that's going to get some good looks. And I think Reed's going to hopefully be a guy who can knock down those looks. The guy that I'm looking to take a huge step forward is Jabari Smith, because on the other side of that, he's the starter who I want to knock down those looks, right? This is a guy who took a step forward year 1 to year 2. He didn't get any plays ran for him offensively in year 1. Silas said so. Now we've got a guy who could be a stretch 4, plays some good defense. If you want to go with a bigger lineup and you go with Adams at the 5, Sengun at the 4, you can play Smith at the 3 and get big and defensive if you want to because of his offensive skill set. So I think this is a guy that they drafted him thinking maybe he could grow into a Kevin Durant type player. He's not that, but he could be one of the better Morris twins type players who is effective and helps you and stays in the league for 15 years.
Yeah, there are two good names that I'm thinking of. One of them I'm really excited to see because to me, Amen Thompson is that guy because
Yeah.
last year, about the first 20, 30 games, he was more or less lost. He was not, not really much part of the offense, not really doing much. This guy, number one, I think has all NBA first team defense written all over him, number one. And number two, if he's already shown that, late in the year that he could be an effective slasher. If he could shoot any, even like knock down an 18, 20 footer. I'm not even talking about threes. He could be all world. But the other guy, under the radar guy, and I saw him mentioned today, and you kind of forgot about him last year, but Tari Eason was hurt most of last year. But as a rookie, he was averaging about 10 and 7 coming off the bench. So I'm gonna be interested to see what he can come back with this year.
I think he's going to be a big missing piece too, Scott, because you kind of missed that nasty off the bench a little bit from Tari. He was willing to get in and bang. Last year, the second team didn't have that punch on defense, right? I think the first team played pretty solid defense. Dylan Brooks is a menace. I think realistically, they as a team played good team defense on the first team. That second team, however, I think really lacked that presence. Now, this year, you've added Steven Adams. You've got Tari Eason coming back healthy. And you've got Cam Whitmore, who may not, and that's another guy returning, Scott. I'm excited to see too. But he can give you more offensive punch off that second team too.
And I guess Thompson's technically not a starter. I don't think he is. So those 4 guys you just listed, that's a pretty damn good bench.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, I think
that's
the Rockets are poised well.
Yeah, that's not even counting Reed Shepherd.
Yeah, there's your 10 right there. And that's a pretty damn good 1 through 10. So I think there's opportunity galore, realistically, for this team. I don't think being a top 8 seed in the West is outrageous. I really don't. Do I think they're going to go win a title this year? No, I think they're not quite there yet. But I do think that this team will be playing meaningful basketball come spring.
And I think you've got enough depth and you have enough, picks stashed away from the Harden trade still, where if you had an Oklahoma City like situation where you had back with Harden, you're poised to make a deal. To
absolutely,
add that piece that would throw you over the top.
You've got picks. You've got, as we said, 1 through 10. You've got players who I think other teams in this league would view as valuable pieces. Maybe not Steven Adams, because I don't think you're moving him. But realistically, you've got, as you said, a litany of valuable assets to go get a guy if someone becomes disgruntled. If and when Phoenix decides to blow it up, go get you a Devin Booker. Go get you, I don't know, somebody out of Philly if things go south there. Go get you anywhere, right? You never know which way the season's going to go, but a star could get pissed off and say, I want out.
Yeah, I mean, or imagine things, blow up in Milwaukee. Can you imagine Greek freak on this team?
Dude, if you could play Giannis at the 4 next to
or hell, Sangoon, who I don't care who you call the 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it's because they can both play that stretch position, particularly Sangoon. That'd be a team.
It would be sick, man. It would be absolutely sick. We'll keep an eye on it. I'll keep an eye on what's happening in Milwaukee, Scott. But I think that brings us to the portion of the show where it's time to start handing out some awards. And this week we're going to be giving out the Horse's Ass Award. Scott, do you want to get us started?
Sure, I'll go ahead. So I'm going to do a mini hat tip to Tim. Tim was in attendance at the TCU U of H game. Sent me some pictures. I'm always I love seeing pictures of the Carter. It's one of the best stadiums I've been to, if I do say so myself. Now I'm going to say this: it's not the fact that we lost to U of H that bothers me. To me, if you take away the high pressure, high stakes portion of the college football landscape, where everybody is nervous about losing their position in a top 4 conference, and everybody's worried about they're becoming only top 3 conferences or top 2 conferences. And oh my God, where do we go from there? If you just look at the Big 12 16, to me, let's not even talk about the basketball conference because we'll get there later on one of a future episode, I'm sure. But let's look at the football conference. There's nobody in there that you feel like we can't beat. And there's nobody in there that you feel like, man, this team just absolutely sucks ass. Yes, Kansas sucks ass right now, but they were good last year. So you get the feeling that, Kansas, if things, bounce their way, could, get things right. So the fact that we lost to U of H, I think U of H is going to end up being a really good program. I think y'all got the right coach in there. And I think, I really liked what I saw, particularly a mobile quarterback, did some good things. You have no business being a double-digit point favorite and starting that game off down 17-0 in your home stadium. What in the hell are we doing? And to me, you get one of those a year, Tim. You get one of those a year. When you went and laid an egg against SMU, we came back and we beat Kansas. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, we're 3-2. We win against U of H. We're 4-2. Maybe we can eke ourselves into a bowl game. Maybe SMU was just kind of a weird anomaly. But see, here's the thing, and you know this well because you're a college football fan yourself. There are 2 games on the TCU schedule that you circle every year, and you show up to play those games every year. One of those is SMU. It doesn't matter what the records are. You bring your best, you bring your A game, and you kick their ass. That's what you do. And the other game is going to come later on this year. It's Baylor. Baylor has just, been a rival of TCU for years, probably because we have 2 Christian church going at it. My favorite headline was, the Baptists and the Christians were fighting on the diamond whenever there was a bench clearing brawl in the baseball game in the old Southwest Conference days. But that's the point. And I don't know, I'm not a U of H fan, so you could probably tell me who those teams are that you circle on the calendar every year. But to me, you show up for those games. But even though U of H is not one of those teams for us, you already blew your wad whenever you went to SMU and laid that egg. You don't get any more eggs to lay. You're going to have to show up. And we started playing football in the second half, and we made it a game for like a brief moment before U of H finally pulled away. But so it's not the fact that y'all won, because, I think anybody in the Big 12 can beat anybody. And I think that's the best part of the conference. But
I agree.
You got to show up. You got to show up.
I definitely agree with you. I when you say the teams that you want to beat, UH definitely Rice is there every year. The year we lost to Rice was an absolute embarrassment. But outside of that, it's probably changed as time has gone on, right? When you played Texas, it was definitely Texas. When we were in the American Athletic Conference, I think Cincinnati was a team that got our best look every single year. But no, like I definitely think you're right that you were a primetime game at the end of the day, right? You were a Friday night ESPN primetime game, and the effort level was terrible. I mean, I was impressed with what UH did because we had not scored, I think, in like 9 quarters coming into that game. But y'all's effort on defense was abysmal.
Yeah, and then 2 interceptions early in the first half just kills you.
Terrible throws, too. Absolutely terrible throws. Like, you didn't even have to make that good of a play for the interception.
Yeah, -10 on turnover ratio in 6 games. That's
not
rough.
Good. Not good. Almost as bad as the fan that moved into our section, Scott. I told you about this. Some drunk frat boy started heckling, how we lose the worst team in the division, all this other stuff. So towards the end of the game, I looked over casually and I just mentioned, hey, we now have the same record in the Big 12 this year. You guys just lost to us by the transitive property. Wouldn't that make you the worst team in the division? And he started trying to fight me. So, I'm going to take you. I'm going to take you right now. I said, where do you want to take me? Because I got a great seat to this game right here. He just got more and more pissed. just a little tiny damper on what is a pretty beautiful night. And I'm not even talking about the game. That stadium is fantastic. They do the cool thing with half priced or $3 sodas before the 6 o'clock. So you get like a giant ass jumbo soda for $3. Unbelievable deal. They got a free hydration station with cold
Oh yeah.
water. I mean, I gotta say, of the stadiums I've been to, I'm with you. That's one of the better college football venues I've ever been to.
Well, and I'm sorry that you had to experience that. You have 10,000 undergrads, and I guess one of them is bound to be an asshole, just by, sheer statistics. So,
Let me ask you this, because I texted my family. I got the vibe from TCU was huge. Like it was like SMU with more purple and more cowboy hats. What are your thoughts on that? A more Western SMU, because now remember it is $81,000 to go to TCU. So you got a bunch of kids on daddy's money who like to throw cowboy hats and boots on.
oh yeah. There's that vibe. It's definitely dress up day for the sororities. Definitely at the games. What I will say about SMU is I don't know if you've ever been to one of their games there,
I have
but
UH
there was like 3 gate 4s, and
three
so
what?
gate 4s. And so we went to the ticket person and said, 5 comes after 4, right? And you're like,
That
yes.
stadium's
Yeah.
beat to shit considering they're now in the ACC.
Well, did you you know what their school or fight song is, right?
I didn't. Money, 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 money.
Yeah. She'll be coming around the mountain.
Oh, is it really?
Yes, it is. It really is.
There's no fucking mountains.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about the comparisons.
Well, let me take my scumbag this week, Scott, because we talked about it briefly, and I said I wanted to come back to it. I mean, sorry, my horse's ass. Bobby Slowick could have cost us the football game on Sunday. The Texans were in field goal position. The Bills were out of timeouts, and there was less than a minute left. You could have run the ball twice, let the clock run down, call a timeout, and kick the game-winning field goal. Instead, they threw it 2 times, left 50 seconds on the clock, and had to punt it back to Josh Allen. Like, what are we doing? Like, not only has the offense been sluggish to this point in the season, the run game has been non-existent. You've not found a way to incorporate all of your receivers into the offense at this point. And then you go and call those plays in that situation. Like, what are we doing? You don't need a touchdown there. You only need a field goal to win. You were in field goal range. How are those the plays that you call with the game on the line? And you could have possibly cost your team the game because you cannot give Josh Allen the ball back. In my mind, it is run the ball, let the clock run down, either kick it and miss and go to overtime or kick it and we win. But there's no way I'm giving Josh Allen the ball back, Scott.
Yeah, I don't know what the thinking is there. And to me, this is where D'Amico Ryans needs to step in. And when he's listening to the headset, he's hearing the play call. He needs to step in and say, no, Bobby. I almost looking at a picture like the Hank Hill, dang it, Bobby.
God dang it, Bobby.
But, okay, so let's play this out. You pass the ball. What's the worst that can happen?
Interception, pick six, you lose the game.
Okay, what's the next worst thing that can happen?
Interception, steps out of bounds, they've got the possession.
Okay, then we didn't have either of those things happen. But the third one is you get sacked or you have a penalty.
Yeah.
You're more likely to have a penalty on a passing play. I mean, the fact that Laramie Tunsil didn't commit a penalty all game might be a minor miracle. Maybe we can call the Vatican and get him, sainted, after that, non-penalty performance. But what if you run the ball, removing fumbling out of the equation? What's the worst that's going to happen?
Negative yardage,
but not much.
Right, yard or two.
And you got 2 plays. What's the possibility that you're going to run 2 running plays and have a net loss in yardage?
Run 2 quarterback sneaks.
Yeah,
quarterback sneak it twice. If you don't get anything, you already had a shorter field goal than he kicked for the win.
Yeah, and the whole thing is that, like you said, you're going to the worst possible scenario is you're going to overtime. That's the worst possible scenario.
Correct. But the moment you gave the ball back to Josh Allen, the worst possible scenario was he's walking your ass off the field.
Yeah.
Thank God it didn't go that way. But again, those play calls, that's a horse's ass play call at the end of the day.
And I'm gonna throw D'Amico in here because he's really got to step in, and he's got to sit there and say, no, we're not doing that. We're running the football. I mean, even if you knelt, you would have still been in better position than you were at the end of that football game in terms of the distance of the field goal.
Kneeling, I think you lose like 6 yards each or 4
Well,
yards
I
each
mean, if
time.
you do, but if you kneel right behind the line, I mean,
Yeah. But again, just QB sneak it. Just push forward. Like you literally could have just, I don't know. It just seemed to me, Scott, like that was a really, like that's the kind of shit I do on Madden when I'm trying to rack up as many points as possible. And this isn't Madden, right? This is real life.
yeah.
All right, Scott, who are you tipping your cap to this week?
Well, I'm going to go with the obvious continuation of that conversation, and we're going to have to go with the Hawaiian, Kaimi Fairbairn. I mean, he has 3 field goals, and I think the shortest one was, 47 yards?
Yeah.
So 2 above 50 yards, including a 59-yarder. And this is what's sick and was crazy about the whole deal is that I was very confident with that 59-yard field goal. I was like, I think he's got this.
Yeah.
And how many times can you say that about a kicker with a 59-yard field goal? Remember when, we had, Fairbairn was injured and you finally brought in another kicker other than Dare. And you remember that he couldn't even kick it 50 yards?
Yeah, Amendola, he sucks.
Yeah. I mean, so to me, I don't know if he won Special Teams Player of the Week. If he did, he should have. That'd be his second one of the year. That's, that doesn't happen very often. So I'm going to have to tip my cap to him because there's going to be a moment where maybe he misses a key kick and, fans are yelling at him. But so you got to give him his roses when he comes up huge for you.
Absolutely. I think you hit the nail on the head there. He's been fantastic. He has been for years. He's clutch. He hit, what is, I think, John Rahm's safety shot off the tee when he's got hit a fairway, a little bit of a pull cut. Shot it right there between the uprights. So I think that's a fantastic choice at the end of the day. My hat tip this week, I told you something. I'm going to mix it up a little bit. I'm actually going to give my hat tip to my buddy Justin Terry, who brought me out to the TCU game. He is a TCU alumni, has season tickets, huge TCU fan, but was willing to bring a UH Coug out to the game when his team was in town. And again, stadium is beautiful. I had toured that campus when I was a senior in high school. Haven't been back since. Unbelievably beautiful campus. It's a great part of town. It was a great experience all around. I tip my cap to Justin for sure for inviting me to that, and my wife for allowing me to take a Friday night and go do something like that.
Well, Tim, that's Ann's number one choice right now as it stands. So we might be selling the house, getting some cardboard, maybe building a little shanty there on campus. So we might be in your neck of the woods.
Hey, that's if you like Caddyshack, where he's like, you live over on Briar, right? Like you got a pool out there. Scott, I got a pond and a pool. You might be more of the pond guy.
A good natural spring. I think it'd be good for you.
All right, Scott. I think it's that time. There are some people out in this godforsaken world who just do some scumbag type of things, and it's up to you and I to just really call them out on it and bring it to light. Scott, who do you have this week as your scumbag of the week?
I've got 2 people, and I'm not going to call them out by name because they're trolls, and trolls do not deserve to be called out by name because that's exactly what they want. First guy earlier this week said, you just came out with a statement and said, you cannot be a Christian and a Democrat. And so I just responded politely and I said, I am. And he says, basically, when everything devolved and he just got into, well, you're going to need to pray for guidance and, you're going to go to hell and all this kind of that, and, you don't know anything. Now, Tim, I'm gonna get to that question here in a second. But I had another woman who I was trying to help her out, just trying to be friendly. There was a conversation about Kamala Harris, and so I just politely pointed out what the job description is for Vice President of the United States according to the U.S. Constitution. This is trying to be helpful. Now, I did insert a joke about her cutting the ribbon at opening a Jamba Juice in Washington, D.C. I hope everybody saw that as sarcasm, but maybe, some people don't really realize that. But she said that, this one I got to read. I'm sorry. I got to read this one. So the last one that she gave to me, let's see. How many times do I have to repeat it? The more I have to repeat it, the more likely I'm correct. You're not smart enough to vote for the best interests of the country and yourself. You just aren't. That was her last quote. And this was basically after me telling her, listen, if you were smart, you'd listen to what I say and you would incorporate that into your argument against Kamala Harris. Because if you paid attention, you'd probably say, maybe she doesn't have the experience that, we thought, that she did have when we assumed that it was her administration. But going back to my first one, Tim, I wrote an article about this on the fact, I think this is my last article I wrote on Substack, where it talked about the reasons why I'm a Democrat and Christian. You were one of my confirmation students. Did I ever tell you who I was voting for?
No.
Did I ever tell you that God's a Democrat?
No, I don't think you ever mentioned anything political, Scott.
Or that God is woke?
No, I think I figured that one out on my own.
So, and this is the point I made, I teach what the church teaches. It's your job to decide two things. Number one, do you believe in what the church teaches? Because that's an honest question. You can say no. And there are some of the church's stances on things where I say no. But the second one is, how do you incorporate those beliefs into how you vote? That's the question. And the point is that God is not woke, is not conservative, is not Republican, is not Democrat. See, God is God. Humans take what God says and says, I'm going to form a philosophy around this, and I'm going to call it a political party. I'm going to call it church. I'm going to call it whatever, right? That's what humans do. And so no church is perfect in terms of getting the will of God down because we're human beings. That's just the way it is.
No, absolutely. And again, at one point in my life, I was a pretty big fan of the West Wing. I've kind of pulled back from it a little bit because I'm a lot less of a liberal now. I'm more left than that. But there's a great line in there where President Bartlett is advising the Republican candidate Arnold Vinnick, and basically tells him, like, when Americans beg for professions of faith from our politicians, we're just asking to be lied to. And what do you know? You've got Donald Trump holding a Bible upside down outside of a church while people get the shit beat out of him. You've got him selling Bibles, the Trump Bible, made in China, by the way. Like, I at the end of the day, like, if you truly think that the Republican Party, like, if the world was blown up today with a giant missile and everybody died and we're all lined up at the pearly gates, like, I have to believe that they're like, hey, we're just going to get this process done first. Hey, any Republican Congress people, senators, judges, raise your hand right now. Yep, the line to hell right there. Just go ahead and start. Ted Cruz, I got an elevator for you. You're going to go down a little bit faster. Greg Abbott, there's a ramp. Just fucking go, right? Like, I cannot imagine a world where you think that any of these people are good Christian people, because if I'm judging you by faith and good works, right? Like, that's at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Your faith and your good works. Your faith should influence your good works. Where's the good works? I don't see any good works. I see narcissistic, self-influenced works that helped you become a richer person.
A minor scumbag, Tim. I don't know if we mentioned this last week, and I don't think this is going to be your scumbag, so I'm not going to step on any toes here. But did you see what the state of Oklahoma is doing?
They're buying Trump Bibles and putting them in
Because,
classrooms.
right, because the specs for it is it must contain the Bible and the Declaration of Independence. Gee, how many Bibles contain all the books of the Bible and the Declaration of Independence, Tim?
Kind of makes you want to come up with your own Bible that has the Declaration of Independence in it and price it $1 cheaper than the Trump Bible and see how much money we can make, Scott.
I know, no kidding.
You know some publishers. Maybe you and I need to have a little conversation about this off air.
Yeah, I think so.
We're about to make a lot of money on the Oklahoma school districts. But no, Scott, my scumbag this week, let's stay with the theme of the Republican Party. That's who my scumbag is. The Republican politicians who all signed against the FEMA appropriations in the House bill, who are now sitting here, finding, they fucked around and now they're finding out, right? But at the end of the day, they're not even finding out because the funds are still being offered to the citizens. They're just acting like they're not. And I absolutely hate this because, again, we mentioned at the top of the show, you and I have been through numerous hurricanes. I still get PTSD from what I went through in Harvey, and I didn't even go through anything as bad as some of the people who lost damn near everything. And you've got people acting like there's no help available, like no one's doing anything, like they're just hanging us out to dry. And it's fucking bullshit. Because number one, that's not the case. I guarantee you there are tons of boots on the ground helping those people. And not even from the government, from other caring human beings. Because you know what one of the most amazing sights I ever saw in my life was the line of trucks carrying fishing boats and fan boats and all that shit from Louisiana when the Cajun Navy came to start pulling people out. So don't sit here and tell me that there's no help. No one gives a shit. That's what they're leaving us for. Because that's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Because I've seen what really happens, and it's everybody does what they can to help people. There's a rush to give blood. There's a rush to go get people out of their homes. There's a rush to get people to safety, to get them clean food, to get them clean water, to get them whatever they need. It's so frustrating that we are politicizing this situation, and the storm landed last night. It barely fucking is over, and we're already talking about how bad this administration is and all this other stuff. And it's just so fucking frustrating, Scott, because the first thought about a storm shouldn't be like, how can I bump my poll numbers because of this hurricane? It should be, let's save as many lives as we can. And I truly, in my heart of hearts, I'm not a Democrat. I'll say that over again. I vote sometimes for Democrats in the election because they best represent my interests, but I'm not a Democrat. But I guarantee you the Biden administration was having conversations of what can we do to mitigate this disaster the best that we possibly can. And I guarantee you a majority of Republicans were having the conversation of how can we use this come election time.
Well, two things that I think that really pissed me off about this whole thing. Number one, even more galling than the lie about whether or not there are resources is the galling of the lie of there are looters that are going to take your home. Because you know what that causes, Tim? That causes people to stay in their home whenever they should be evacuating. There were people that were told that were in the path of the storm, oh, the storm's not going to hit you. Don't worry about it. What the fuck are we doing? I mean, when you're sitting there saying, oh, there's these migrant looters are going to come and take your home. Take what? It's a Category 5 fucking hurricane. There's not going to be anything left to take. Okay, and then number two, everybody's favorite member, as Malkowitz said, the representative from Florida, everybody's favorite member of the Mensa chapter of the House of Representatives, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's telling us that, of course, we're controlling the weather. Of course, the government's doing that. Okay, do you realize...
The same lady, by the way, who said there's Jewish space lasers.
Do you realize how much power it would take to generate a storm of that size?
I mean, I can't imagine. Probably need a lot of solar energy. She didn't like that, though.
You need... It's more powerful than any plant could produce in the world. And so, and then to sit there and say, well, they landed it only on red areas. Like, come, what the fuck? Really? I mean, this is what we have for intelligent discourse in this country. And we have people, and there are people who pick that up on social media and they're like, do you think this storm was, man-made, or do you think it was natural? Because let's say it was man-made. Let's just pretend. And we have over 100 people that died in the last storm. How do you think anybody would keep it a secret that knew about that? Somebody would come forward and say, like, I'm sorry, my bad, that was us. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same people that, and there are people that on the left, the far left, who thought, that 9/11 was an inside job. I mean, come on. I mean, this is
I mean, the sad part is, Scott, all this stuff traces back to one guy, one piece of shit guy who's losing everything he owns through bankruptcy in Austin, named Alex Jones. Like, at the end of the day, all of this shit that you've mentioned, the 9/11 conspiracy bullshit, that's fucking Alex Jones. The people are going to come and loot your house. Literally, he's on air saying that 3 days ago. Like, he starts it. If you look at the right-wing media sphere, almost all this crazy shit starts on Alex Jones, starts on Ben Shapiro, starts on these other crazy fucking nut jobs, and slowly a filtered version of it comes out of Donald Trump's mouth, like within a week.
Yeah, and probably not even that much, right? And it's just crazy. It's like, I think, and I go back to my social media people, just the number of people that are just idiots. And I love the fact that I'm not smart enough to vote for my interest. Oh, honey. And this because this is a woman. Oh, honey. I could run circles around you with half my brain tied behind my back.
Oh yeah, Rush. That's the old Rush Limbaugh quote. I could out debate you with half my brain tied behind my back. No, I mean, at the end of the day, Scott, somebody that thinks that voting for Donald Trump is the best interest of our country is a moron. If you want to be straight up with me and be like, hey, my net worth is $50 million, and I believe that voting for Donald Trump will allow me to hold on to more of my money and continue to fuck you guys over as a working class and allow me to grow this money further, I'd be like, you know what? You're a piece of shit, but at least you're straightforward about it and you know why you're voting for Donald Trump, right? Like, you're not someone who has been conned into thinking that this man has anything of your interest at all.
Exactly.
Well, I think that is going to do it here for us this week, Scott. Surprise, surprise, Republicans are scumbags, right?
Yeah. So do you have anything coming for us on Substack?
I'm going to bang something out here tonight, Scott. I normally like to do it on the same night that we do our show. I'm in work mode at that point, so I'll get something out there tonight. I know you said you've got some stuff coming out both on Substack and on Crawfish Boxes and on Battle Red Blog.
Yeah. I'm everywhere. I'm ubiquitous.
Hey.
Throwing out one of those smart terms, since I'm an idiot.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere. Where's he been? Alabama, Buffalo, Texaco? I don't even remember at this point. All right, Scott.
All right.
Well, we appreciate everybody who joined us this week and made us a part of your week. We will see everybody, same bat time, same bat channel next week on Born on the Bayou Sports. Thanks again, folks.